The ultimate predator.
Laisse-moi venir chez toi.
Anne, c'est terminé. J'ai le cœur sec de toi.
Vous savez, quand on s'oublie avec l'autre, les autres, qu'on sait plus où on est, une forme d'amour en quelque sorte. Puissant, vorace, sans limite. Ça vous est jamais arrivé?
Votre acteur a été poignardé, une mort particulièrement violente.
Carl venait de tourner dans un de mes films.
Quel genre de film exactement?
Oh, arrêtez votre charme. Faites pas le coup des types qui sont pas renseignés. T'es un super beau mec, tu sais.
Vous faites quoi?
Je suis productrice de films érotiques. La seule chose, c'est que parfois on manque de filles. Alors on fait ça entre mecs. Tu appelles moi demain matin?
Détective Rachid, j'écoute.
Je crois que je vais changer le titre du film. Le tueur homo. Vous en dites quoi?
Je me trompe ou tout ça te fait ni chaud ni froid?
Alors comme ça, vous n'avez aucune piste? Vous attendez que tous mes acteurs crèvent pour vous mettre au boulot?
Personne veut tourner avec nous, ils sont tous terrifiés.
Il y a bien un indice. Près des 2 premiers cadavres, on a retrouvé des plumes du même oiseau.
Tu devrais être plus attentive à tes rêves. Ils sont là pour t'aider.
C'est cet amour qui est trop pour moi. Ça me rend dingue, tu comprends?
Hi, this is Bob Desimone. I played Billy in Friday the 13th, Part 5, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 278 this time. And ooh la la, we're off to Paris. Well, I think it's Paris anyway. Or certainly to France with the Nouveau Giallo, Knife Plus Heart. It's going to be interesting one to talk about this because there has been in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, I guess, there's been various stabs, if you forgive the pun, at the making a kind of a new giallo. And many of them have been on the artier side. And this one I kind of guess straddles, again, for want of a better term, the two camps, again, for want of a better term. I should shut up now, shouldn't I? Anyway, we're going to be coming on to, oh God, for want of a better term, Knife and Heart a little bit later. So, but anyway, how are we all doing this fine morning? Erik, how's it over in Dublin?
It's so grey that it's grey.
It's like a Morrissey song, is it?
It's like a Morrissey song over here, yes.
Well, as I said before we came on air, oh God, I'm going to be, this is going to go on and on, isn't it? It was meant to be rainy today, but it's beautiful blue skies out there today. So at least here. But Nathan, it was raining where you were, weren't you? Like a Morrissey song.
Yes. Like a Morrissey song or like a Creedence Clearwater Revival song.
Is that one of their songs?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really your style of music, Justin. I don't think they would play it in your goth techno clubs.
Well, you never know. They've all put sort of black lipstick on. Who knows what would happen? But and Joseph, how are you doing? Is it a fine morning where you are?
Oh, it's finely cold. Very cold.
Okay, well, we are, as I say, we're going to be covering Knife Plus Heart, which I think, Joseph, if this is your pick, isn't it?
Well, it's a listener pick from Alfred Giancarli, but I did want to say if ever there were a time to give a shout out to someone, it's this episode because I think the crew, Emily and her crew at Gag Me With a Knife podcast might like a certain scene in this film. Gag Me With a Knife.
Ah, I see where you're going with that one, yes. So, but yeah, we'll be covering that as our main pick. But before we do that, as ever, we have a little chat about what we've been watching recently. And I understand, Erik, you have no recently seen. Is that correct?
I have no recently seen, apart from Knife and Heart and Breaking, and my top 3 of 2010.
Of course, we are covering, after this, we're recording our Patreon pick, Eric's Patreon off-piste pick of Breakin', the breakdance movie, in case you didn't know, which I didn't. Well, I knew of it, but I hadn't seen it before. So we're covering that on Patreon. So you know what to do if you want to have a listen. Join us over there for as little as $1 a month. Well, thank you, Erik. Well, no, thank you, because they didn't say it. But anyway, Nathan, how about you?
No, I don't have anything, unfortunately.
Well, it has only been a week, hasn't it, since we recorded last? And we are cramming, and that's not another double entendre, for our top 3 of 2010. So again, join us on Patreon for that one. But Joseph, how about you?
This is going to be a short show. I have nothing.
And thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues. Say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
So anyway, no, bye. Well, actually, I have seen a few, because if you were listening last time, I think I mentioned I still have no internet at the moment. So I'm working my way through an old hard drive of movies. And one I've seen, which I'm curious to find out whether Eric's watched, is The Quiet Earth.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one that, because I went on a bit of a post-apocalyptic kind of Bender, I can guess. And there was a number of films I hadn't seen. A Boy and His Dog was what I mentioned last time. And The Quiet Earth is not a horror movie by any stretch, but it's kind of, I guess it kind of straddles the sci-fi, doesn't it? So, but it's surprisingly, it's about a man who wakes up in the morning. It was filmed in New Zealand. He wakes up in the morning and there's basically no people. Everything is just left. And there's the whole of New Zealand is seemingly completely free of people. Everyone's just disappeared, and so he's on his own. So it has a kind of similarities to some other films like Night of the Comet, where characters kind of go and dress up in supermarkets and that, not supermarkets, in clothing stores, and sort of live the high life, and then realise that kind of comes crashing down into depression because there's no one around, and then it takes a kind of twist. It's not really post-apocalyptic. Well, I guess it is post-apocalyptic, isn't it? But it's kind of slightly more sci-fi bent to it. But Erik, it's one that you enjoy, is it?
Yeah, I really love it. It is. It's kind of sci-fi. It's a lo-fi sci-fi, because obviously it's low budget and have huge effects. It does have that brilliant final scene on the beach. But I really like it. As you said, it's not really post-apocalyptic. I think from what I remember, it's some kind of dimension shift or something caused by a nuclear power plant or something is the cause of the quiet Earth or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of along those lines. I think it's some experiment that kind of goes wrong. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was kind of,
and there's a nudie man in it.
He's nudie quite often, isn't he? He keeps on, So if you like that kind of thing. So Nathan, Joseph, have you ever seen or heard of The Quiet Earth?
No, I thought it was like a nature show.
Well, it is in some ways
like
at the beginning.
Yeah,
the kind of naturist show anyway at the beginning of the movie. So, and Joseph, is it something you've come across?
Yeah, I've seen The Quiet Earth once a long time ago, so I don't really remember much about it, but I have seen it.
Cool. Okay, and talking of polar opposites, another one I had on my hard drive was a very, very poor VHS rip of The Rise, or Idi Amin, The Rise and Fall. Now, it's known as a kind of a bit of one of those kind of exploitation classics, in inverted commas, along the lines of the Guyana movie about Jim Jones. Those kind of exploitation titles they made in the 1970s, although this was made in 1981, that kind of exploited the more sensationalist aspects of true crimes or true life. And Idi Amin was the infamous dictator of in Uganda in the early and mid 1970s, who infamously kept his decapitated heads of his rivals in his freezer and did all sorts of nasty things, including allegedly cannibalism. So this movie, I only made it through about half of it before I fell asleep, which is no reflection on the movie. It's just I was a bit tired, so I need to watch the rest of it. Is very much along those lines of those kind of 70s grindhouse exploitation, kind of ways of making a biopic, I kind of guess. But it's rightfully kind of infamous, but it's not I thought it was going to be like a bad movie funny, but it's not really that. It's kind of it kind of straddles that line between not particularly well made movie and trying to be quite serious and not actually funny. Not that Idi Amin was funny, but it's, from what I heard, it was kind of known as a bit of a kind of a bad taste classic. But it's So any of you guys had the pleasure or displeasure of Idi Amin, The Rise and Fall?
No, I've heard of it, but not got around to seeing it.
Well, I did find there was, when I was looking through some old press clippings of London newspapers, it was made with, I think there was a charity premiere for the Red Cross in London that I found an article for, which I thought, I just couldn't quite imagine what the audience would have made of the movie. Because there's a bit
and
in
now
it where
it's the royal. Here come the Prince and Princess of Wales to see the world premiere of Cannibal Holocaust.
Well, exactly. Well, there's a bit in it where Idi Amin goes into a morgue where somebody he's had shot, and then he cuts a piece off him, and then kind of he eats it. So it's, I could just imagine Camilla Parker Bowles or someone watching this in the royal box. But anyway, I didn't find out any what actually was said about it. But anyway, the last thing I'll just mention is something that obviously a lot of people are watching at the moment, is The Last of Us HBO TV series. Which I'm enjoying. I have played the games. Nathan, I know you're a bit of a gamer. Did you play The Last of Us games?
Well, I'm not really a bit of a gamer. I played Friday the 13th. I was really addicted to it for a while. But no, I haven't played Last of Us. But I have watched the show. You have? And what did you think of the show? I really enjoyed it. I think it's really good. I think it's it kind of is a slow burn at times, but I think it works for the show. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. But before I sort of mention what I thought of it, Joseph, presumably you're not much. Last time we spoke, you said you had like a kind of old sort of SNES or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean my taste in video games kind of died out in the early 90s, so this will be something I probably have no interest in. No, but you've not watched the HBO TV series either. No, I've heard of it. A lot of people are raving about it, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to get into TV shows. I have so many on my plate right now, so I haven't gotten to it. Well, the one good thing about one of the things is they said that they're unlikely to spin it out like The Walking Dead, sort of season 425. So they probably will only have 2 seasons of it. So which is a bit of a rarity, isn't it, with American TV shows, where they kind of do tend to flog the dead horse, for want of a better term. But Erik, I know you're not much of a TV show watcher. No, it's not often for me that I say this sentence, but they're just way too long for me. Again, as you can tell, it's going to be one of those shows. So yeah, buckle up. So anyway, that's all I've been watching. I would say The Last of Us, have enjoyed it. I think it's very interesting. Actually, talking about, because obviously we're going to be The Knife and Heart is kind of like showing kind of, well, sort of aspects of kind of gay sexuality and they do a similar thing or more to do with gay relationships in The Last of Us, which is very in keeping with the games. Actually, the games are very progressive as well, but it's interesting and also disheartening to see kind of some of the reaction from some of the people watching it, which probably won't surprise you, but I'm sure those people will not be listening to this episode if they kind of are so homophobic. So, but talking of which, let's move on to the main show. Paris, summer of 1979. And French pop star Vanessa Paradis. Is that how you pronounce her name? Paradis? Paradis. Okay. Sorry about that. Paradis produces third-rate gay porn. After her editor and lover Lois leaves her, she tries to win her back by shooting her most ambitious film yet with her trusted, flaming sidekick Archibald. But one of her actors is brutally murdered, and Anne gets caught up in a strange investigation that turns her life upside down. Shot on 35mm and featuring a killer retro score from M83, Jan Gonzalez's Knife Plus Heart is an ultra-stylish and blood-soaked ode to 70s-era De Palma, Argento, and Friedkin. And that was from the back of the Blu-ray release of Knife Plus Heart, or Knife and Heart, or Knife in the Heart, whatever you wish to call it. And this was a first-time watch for me, though I've been aware of the film since it streamed briefly on one of the adult tube sites back around the time it was released. I don't remember which one. And indeed, it does pay homage to, the likes of Argento and De Palma, and that opening half especially does call to mind something like Cruising. And hopefully this comes off as non-homophobic as possible. The film is also super gay, but only on a surface level. The characters, they don't seem to fear for their safety as it relates to their sexuality, in so much rather their sexuality is contextualized as this thing that's, I don't know, it's pretty much just paying their bills. And the fact that a murderer seems to be targeting their persuasion doesn't seem to twig beyond that particular surface level, save for maybe an offhand remark here and there. The characters are, I don't know, is aloof the right word? Their attitudes are very unusual in how they deal with this incident. I mean, even the straight kid they pick up at the construction site to replace one of the actors, for a moment he appears to turn his cheek, no pun intended, at the prospect of being a quote-unquote fairy on film. But the money is good and he adapts quickly. And that's about as far as I'll go in pointing out some of the themes that I took from the film. I think one of you three, I imagine, are probably better suited at discussing the subtext, if any. What I can discuss without sounding too misinformed, as the lone heterosexual on the podcast, I hope, are those seriously deranged murder sequences and the kind of the artistic approach taken in that department. I mean, the killer here, he uses a switchblade that's encased in this dildo, and it ends up in all the places you would think it will, or all the orifices you think it will. And, like Argento, the color palette here is very vivid, and the usage of birds, like something like opera, it comes into play here. For me, though, I think it was around the halfway point of the film that, more or less, it kind of lost me. I mean, I was really vibing with that kind of hyper cruising style first half, but like a lot of these neo-gialli, it seems unable to truly commit to paying homage to the genre without going off the deep end artistic wise. And it's not just, knife plus heart. I mean, films like The Editor, it relied too much on, wacky comedy, and Black Swan had one too many Oscar ambitions, and, The Neon Demon didn't really know when to end. And, for me, Knife Plus Heart, it abandons that typical Argento mystery structure for something, very arty, very atypically arty. And I don't know, it all looks great. And, it's a feast for the eyes, I'll say that. But there are levels, I think, to a good giallo. And these newer films, for me personally, they don't quite hit the right formula, and usually those stylish concepts, they kind of get in the way of the murder mystery at heart, and I think that's what happens here. Also, I alluded to this earlier, but the characters, they're just too disassociated to garner much sympathy, and this is especially true with the lead character of Anne, who kind of flip-flops between master gay filmmaker with a heart of gold and this deluded stalker. I mean, I could see why Lois left her. She's kind of crazy. So I don't know. I really appreciated this film and what it has to offer, but I can't say that I ultimately liked it, if that makes sense. I mean, I like my slasher movies, or, my gialli, as it relates here. I like them to have an air of rewatchability, and I just don't think the rewatchability factor is here for me personally. So I'll recommend it for its strengths, and there are plenty to go around, but as a piece of entertainment, I don't know. It just doesn't quite hit that mark. So, who am I going to go to first? I don't know what you guys are going to say about this film. So, Erik, what are your thoughts on Knife Plus Heart? Did you have the similar reaction, or did you like it a lot more?
I think I liked it a lot more than you did. I think because I was going in with quite low expectations. I remember this being reviewed on the Kermode and Mayo film review show on BBC Radio 5, whenever it came out in 2018, was it? And my memories of listening to that review were they made it sound like it was really super arty. And I'd seen All the Colour of Your Body's Tears, is that what it's called, in the cinema. And I thought that just about passed muster watching it on the big screen with the brilliant sound and those amazing visuals, but it wasn't a film I'd ever rewatch again. I don't think if it was something I watched at home, I don't think I would have enjoyed it. And I thought Knife and Heart was going to be this super arty film that was going to sort of beyond my sort of trash movie sensibilities. So I wasn't looking forward to watching this film. So I was generally surprised then when it turned out to have more or less a concrete narrative to it, which I really appreciated. It still has these arty touches that I don't understand the meaning of, because I'm just not built that way, unfortunately. I thought the 1970s setting I thought was really well captured for me. It's, as you said, it's set in Paris in 1979, and the people genuinely look like they're from the era. I thought that was, it created the sort of world of the late 70s really well. I thought that, early on we get, I suppose, the art house leanings are indicated by some of the dialogue, which, there's the Vanessa Paradis character says things to the Lois character like, caress me with your voice. And she replies with, my heart has gone dry. This really unrealistic dialogue. And I thought, my heart was beginning to sink. My knife and my heart began to sink, because I thought, this film is just going to be totally pretentious. But thankfully, it does get into a groove of being a giallo on the lines of something like All the Colours of the Dark, where on the one hand it's a standard giallo, and on the other hand it has all these sort of weird arty tangents that it goes off on. Some of the elements that did puzzle me, like the bird expert whose hand is mutated into like a bird's claw. It's really bizarre, and I'm sure there's probably some deep significance to it, but I just thought it was wacky. Now, it did add a bit of interesting flavour to the plot, but I don't understand why his hand was like a bird's claw, or what the meaning of it was. I was wondering if maybe the Vanessa Paradis character, who spends a lot of the time drinking, Justin Turk as well, she seems to be carrying around like a bottle of whiskey in her pocket all the time. So I'm wondering if she's meant to be this unreliable narrator, like the lead character in something like A Lizard with a Woman's Skin. And so all the bizarre elements within it are her sort of hallucinations or dreams or her craziness. I thought like just the non-stop drinking, and there's a lot of smoking in it as well. I think that helped create
God. It's shocking that you can actually see what the actors are doing, because there's so much smoke in this film.
So much smoke. I mean, it's really hilarious, and it really stands out now, because I think smoking is a big no-no in sort of modern cinema. So it's really strange to see how much there is. I thought the film within the film sequences were really fun. And it gave them a bit of leeway to do some really oddball things, like having a cop shagging a typewriter, which was quite funny.
About that scene.
Yeah. And I love, there's a scene where they're at a picnic. It's a rap party picnic they're having for the film crew in a park somewhere. And one of the characters pretends to give birth to a bottle of vodka, which I can safely say is something I've never seen before in a film. And I thought that scene at the picnic in the woods were terrific, when the character, is it Missia or something is his name, where he's left alone in the woods and the camera is spinning around, and we can see the killer slowly getting closer to him each time it passes his face. I thought that was really fun. As you said, there was very strong vibes of cruising in the early parts of the film. But overall, I really kind of enjoyed it, because I liked things like Black Swan and Neon Demon. I didn't like things like Barbarian Sound Studio, is that what it was called? And All the Colour of Your Body's Tears. Just weren't my cup of tea, and that's what I thought Knife and Heart was going to be. I thought it was going to be this impenetrable, no pun intended, sort of art house film, whereas it's not. It really is kind of a throwback to 70s giallo, and I like that about it. And it does have this artiness to it in the same way that Footprints on the Moon or Perfume of the Lady in Black did, but I think it has enough going on. It has one foot in the grindhouse, one foot in the art house, and I think that it works out well. I thought it had the outlandish moments I think were justified, because it had this sort of concrete narrative in the background that kept your interest. So yeah, I was expecting the worst for Knife and Heart. I thought it was going to be a film for art critics and not really for somebody like me who likes breaking and listening to Kajagoogoo. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So that's my tuppence. And yeah, as for the gay subtext and that, I mean, it got to a point where I wasn't even thinking about, okay, the killer is targeting these characters who are all gay, but to me it was just because they had made this film based on the traumatic incident from his past. So he was targeting them for that reason rather than their sexuality. So I'd kind of almost forgotten about the sexuality of the characters as the film progressed. So
yeah, I mean, I was kind of wondering if I was off base about that because they seemed to be so aloof about it. You know, I knew that they were targeting them because of that plot line, but you know, they just seem like to not care that they're all gay and they're all getting killed. So it's very unusual.
Yeah, maybe there is. I mean, Justin's probably a better person to analyze this stuff, and if we had Amanda Reyes, she'd be really good at analyzing this stuff, but I'm not that type of person, I'm afraid. So, yeah. But I really enjoyed the film, so...
Okay.
Can I just pick your brains, Eric, just 1 second on the particular plot point? Because you've kind of given away as we do, we kind of spoil this, which is the way we always say to watch the film before you listen to the podcast, but... You're right in saying that she, because Vanessa Paradis character goes to the cinema to watch Homicidal, which is the film that she's made, and then they play an older film of hers, which it kind of tells the story more or less of the killer. But earlier in the film, she goes on this odyssey to this forest to try and finds out about the story of the killer, basically, but she's already made a film about it.
I was confused by that point as well. It's like, well, surely she should have twigged this earlier. She's made a film about it.
Yeah, so that was because there was also the thing with the Fuad character, which is the guy she picked up in the whatever you call it, the construction site, and then he was a spitting image of another character, which didn't seem to go anywhere either, did it?
Yeah.
There seemed to be a few kind of cul-de-sacs kind of in the plot that it was difficult to interpret whether or not that actually meant anything or it was...
This is where I need you and your former art student sensibilities.
Yeah. So what's your take, Nathan, on the fact that she went on that odyssey to that forest and then got the feather and all that, but you already made a film about it 2 years before?
Yeah, I don't really have a good theory for that, except for maybe she, drank so much that she didn't remember.
Yes, possibly there was absinthe in that bottle. So what are your thoughts, Nathan, on the movie?
I loved Knife Plus Heart. I mean, I felt dumb sometimes while watching it. I felt a little bit thick because I couldn't understand some of the stuff that was going on. Like there would be these scenes where characters would like stare and the wind would be picking up and blowing. And I'm like, oh, there's probably something really meaningful going on right now, but I don't get it.
Well, that's exactly how I felt, Nathan, so don't feel alone.
I thought it was I guess kind of spoiler alert. I mean, for one, I was under the false impression that this was a whodunit. So I was actually sitting there trying to guess the killer when it's actually not really a whodunit. It's more of a why done it. But I thought it was kind of ironic because what you guys said earlier about, he's not killing these people because they're gay. He's killing them because they made this movie. And it's kind of ironic at the end that the community kills him because they think he's killing gay people. When really he kind of has this tragic story about, what his dad did. And it's kind of like cruel to make a porn of this guy's life when such awful things happen to him. It's kind of like wrong.
Yeah, and some of the other characters, they look at the Anne character, they're like, are you okay? Like, do you not twig any of this at all? Do you not feel anything about this at all?
Yeah, see, and that threw me off because I was like, I don't know. And I didn't really get the ending where Anne and Archie are just kind of looking at each other and, the movie goes off. But, it feels like it's building. So I'm like, their look probably means something in the film as well. And, again, I didn't understand it. I thought the the typewriter sex scene was an interesting route to take. I also I really thought all the porn scenes were hilarious. Like, I liked the interrogation scene. I thought it was really funny. But overall, I felt that, it's visually a great movie, and, I really like the story. And so, I'm going to have to give this a recommendation as well. Even though I didn't understand a lot of the artistic things, I still like the other stuff I saw.
Cool. And Justin, what are your thoughts, please?
I think I'm the only one out of the four of us who's seen the movie before. But it was long enough ago that I couldn't remember the outcome. It kind of came to me throughout, I was watching it. I kind of really liked it. I thought it's actually it's one thing it isn't given credit for as much as it perhaps should be, is it's actually quite funny. Some of it anyway is as you mentioned, Nathan, the sex scenes, the porno shoot, a lot of it's quite funny. And also it's kind of shot in that very typically kind of French way. Not that I've obviously ever seen any French gay porn from the 1970s.
Of course not.
But I imagine it is very similar to how it would have looked. And of course, when we come on to a little bit of background, there is some truth to, the main character is based on the real person. So overall, I really liked it. It held my attention again this time, because there's just so much to look at. There's so much eye candy in the way it's shot. I agree that it's the way they create this 1979 kind of alternative reality almost, which is interesting because quite often when people do kind of retro shoots, or they do films set in a certain time period, they tend to overdo things in so much they give everyone, they say everyone's going to have dealy boppers, it's 1979, or everyone's going to be in hot pants and roller skates. And they don't do that here, but they have everything having that slightly arty French fashion that you would have seen at that time, which isn't so over the top, it's jarring, but it seems very kind of fitting. So that worked really, really well. I kind of think it's kind of, if you go into it expecting a straight ahead Argento style giallo, you will be disappointed perhaps. It's certainly, I think Erik kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it has 1 foot in the grindhouse, 1 foot in the art house. And I think it definitely has that feeling, because certainly as the movie goes on, you have this, the Vanessa Paradis character is kind of fascinating, because she starts off as she's kind of basically a mess. She's an alcoholic, chain-smoking mess who's kind of, just broken up with a girlfriend. And then she starts, the kind of interesting twist on it is that she starts incorporating the murder scenes of her cast into the film she's making, which she renames homicidal or homicidal. So she's got this thing that even some of her cast and crew are a bit aghast that she's just kind of utilizing the murders of some of her past performers, or the performers in this movie. But then she switches characters again and becomes that kind of amateur detective you kind of see in the giallo, and then takes it upon herself to kind of unravel this mystery about who the killer is and why they're doing it. But then you come round to this whole thing at the end that she'd actually made a porno film about his life and the tragedy that kind of led to him starting the murders. So it's a kind of very strange journey this character's got. How much of it's always difficult with kind of art house movies when you think how much of this is intentional or how much actually is it Emperor's New Clothes. But I think Knife Plus Heart has got enough going on with it that it actually works as a giallo, and kind of as a slasher movie. I kind of guess the slasher movie deaths in it, are pretty gruesome. They're not particularly prolonged, but you get the kind of the dildo through the mouth and out through the back of the neck. You get like a stabbing scene at the beginning, which is very similar to one of the opening scenes in William Friedkin's Cruising, which obviously was an inspiration for this, because that Cruising was made or released a year after this was set. But also Brian De Palma's Blowout, I think, was another inspiration. Of course, the Italian gialli, and I think this is much more successful a movie at kind of utilizing the framework of those 70s gialli than all the colors of Your Body's Tears, or whatever it's called, which are really more of an exercise in style. And I think we've talked about this before and said that it's actually, when you watch 70s gialli, Even, I mean, especially the Dario Argento ones, there's a lot of humor in them. And also they're set up in relatively, although they have all these flourishes, like you mentioned, the kind of Footprints on the Moon and those kind of movies which have that kind of art house flourishes or those kind of interesting kind of visual things going on in them. They tend to have a kind of a pretty solid narrative, kind of linear narrative, I kind of guess, as a murder mystery. Whereas most of the nouveau giallis have not had that. They've been much more, say, an exercise in style. Whereas this does have that, although it doesn't actually make that much sense. So it kind of comes. It's funny how it kind of goes round in a circle from the grindhouse to the art house and back again several times. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It's not a film that I would necessarily come back to that many times, and it's certainly not what I'd term a party movie. But if you've got a taste of something different, then it's definitely worth a look. And I do just going to mention that scene that you mentioned, Erik, of the character in the woods with the camera panning around them, and then every time it kind of abstracts as it whirls round, and then it pulls into focus with the killer one step closer to them each time the camera comes back round is fantastic. And it's something that I can imagine would have worked brilliantly in a Sergio Martino or a Dario Argento giallo from the early 70s.
Yeah, that scene really reminded me of Torso. I mean, it was straight out of Torso.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, I really liked it. It's very different to what we normally would cover. And, I would say your mileage may vary watching this. There isn't any, as far as, considering it's all based around a porn set and thing, and there's kind of mild nudity. I mean, there's no full frontal nudity in this. It doesn't go that far. In case you were wondering about watching it, it's quite chaste actually in its kind of in that whole kind of way. But I found it kind of actually her sidekick who plays her in the recreation of the murders as a kind of a drag impersonation of the Anne character. Is really funny and sort of quirky. So, yeah, overall, I really liked it. So, yeah, interesting pick for us to cover. So, is anything left to say about Knife Plus Heart before we look at some a little bit of background?
Just that, yeah, I mean, like I said, I appreciate this movie a lot, but I don't necessarily, I don't know, you know what it is? I think the older I get, the more I just want to sit down for 90 minutes with a bunch of characters that I like. And I didn't hate the characters here, but like I said, they're so aloof that it's really kind of hard to, engage with them, if I'm honest. So I didn't want to come off like I hated this film, because I certainly didn't, but I don't know. It's just, it didn't really quite click for me on that level.
Okay, well, fair enough. Like I say, mileage may vary, so be interesting to, if you're listening, then do let us know. Although, actually, talking of which, how was it received, as it were? Again, I'm not doing these double entendres on purpose, but how was it received by our dear listeners on the Facebook group?
Well, we had 17 comments for Knife Plus Heart, and there's no negative comments this week. That's kind of interesting. So I'm just going to read a couple of these, or a few of these little kind of snippets here. Tom Virtuoso says, loved it, especially the music, and the self-interpreted in-credit sequence got to me. Fat Matt TW adds, really great and beautifully stylistic. Matt Humes chimes in with one of my favorite films of the past decade, and Terry Carpenter closes out our Listener of the Week portion with a marvelous French take on the Italian giallo film, filled with a heavy dose of wall-to-wall flair, basking in neon and featuring a wonderful M83 soundtrack, and that soundtrack is amazing, I forgot to mention. Slashing, gore, sex, and a heaping amount of sleaze abound. Those looking for a stimulating sizzle with your steak absolutely won't be left in the dust here. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on what we're up to, and FYI, Erik generally posts nudes around the 15th of the month. If you're interested, listen just about anywhere you grab your pods and YouTube. And if you'd like to help keep the show on the air, consider joining us on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. And our email address for feedback, and we do have a little coming up shortly, is the hysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, before we talking of coming on to Erik, as it were, we'll wait for the joke of the week. Let's do a little bit of background first. So has anyone got anything?
I don't. I mean, I barely had time to watch and review the film, so I didn't really dig up much. The only thing I do have is that the characters in this film, a lot of their names are kind of, well, they're not necessarily anagrams of other filmmakers, but they're kind of variations on some of those kind of snootier, arty filmmakers, names of which I couldn't, remind you, but I thought that was interesting that they took that route with the character names. But that's really all I have personally. So if you guys want to fight out for the rest, have at it.
Okay. Have you got anything for us, Nathan?
The score for the film was composed by Anthony Gonzalez of M83, who is director Jan Gonzalez's brother. And I have a song from M83 on my playlist on my phone. Let's see.
Oh, was Wikipedia not loading?
No, it is, but I can't pronounce some of this stuff, and I'm afraid I'm going to sound stupid.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan, anyway. So having good taste in music. So what about you, Erik?
I've got good taste in music as well.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
How rude. I have everything that you've written down, Justin, because I saw your notes last night as we were kissing. Yeah. All I will say is that was Vanessa Paradis did she have any pop hits in the States?
The name, I couldn't pronounce her name, but that name sounded familiar, but I don't remember any of her music off the top of my head, so I don't know.
But she had a big hit in 1987-88 called Je le Taxi, which was sung in French, and then her other big hit was one called Be My Baby, which is written by Lenny Kravitz, which was in the early 90s.
Oh, I know that song, okay.
Yeah, so she dated Lenny Kravitz, but she actually married Johnny Depp. She was Johnny Depp's wife for 14 years. They divorced in 2012. So that's how I would know her. I was surprised actually when I was watching Knife and Heart, because when she was on Top of the Pops doing Je le Taxi back in the late 80s, she was only 15 or 16 years old, so she was really young. So it was really quite jarring to see her as not that she looks old, but she just, my memory of Vanessa Paradis is of this sort of very young French girl with a gap in her teeth singing about Je le Taxi, which now I speak fluent French, so that translates as Joe the Taxi.
Wow, it's like having Duolingo on the show.
It is, isn't it?
Was that your joke of the week, Erik?
No, my joke of the week's even better. My joke of the week is quite X-rated, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, we shall wait with bated breath on that. But is that everything you've got for us, Erik?
Yeah, just apart from what you have as well.
Okay. Well, I'll just repeat what you were going to say then. But I think I mentioned already that it's the character of Anne is actually based on a real life person who was Anne-Marie Tency, who was a kind of pioneer in gay porn, and especially in France, and especially interesting because obviously she was a woman. So she directed. Her editor was actually called Lois as well. And so these two women were creating gay porn for cinemas, presumably, obviously before the days of VHS, usually under pseudonyms like Job Blau or Joe and Anthony Smalltoe, and some of the
Job Blow,
yeah, it's GOBBLOUGH.
Job Blow is an anagram of something else.
I know. I wonder what that is. Very clever, But yeah, she owned a couple of gay porn cinemas. Also had her own production company, and some of the titles she had were Malefices Pornos, and one that sounds particularly rude, and I don't know what it means in French, is Nelly Pile ou Face or ou Face. So whatever that might be in French, I don't know. It'd make me blush if I looked up, I'm sure. But apparently most of the films that she made have disappeared. Apparently only 10 of the gay films she directed still remain. And apparently she directed over 100 films, and only about 10 are known to still exist. So who knows? I know one of the other things I was going to mention, it was filmed on 35mm and obviously on 16mm were the scenes that were filmed for the film in film, which were kind of cleverly intercut with it. Now the film got good reviews when it was released in the United States on a kind of limited cinema release in 2019.
Yes, certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, and the Star Tribune said it was clearly a tribute to Brian De Palma's Blowout, which, if you remember, that's the one with Nancy Allen, isn't it, John Travolta? But there's a short quote here from Katie Walsh, her review in the LA Times, and she says the film crafts a bloody, fantastic slasher flick set in the world of gay porn in 1979 Paris. It feels like a giallo take on The Phantom of Paradise, with heavy influences from Peeping Tom and Todd Haynes' 1991 feature debut, Poison. This magical, erotic, disco-tinged horror thriller is like cinematic candy. So, and who can argue with that? So, so that's kind of all I have, I think, on this movie. There's not a massive amount out there. I know the director has gone on to make a couple of short films after this. I think there was another feature he made 2013, which I forgot to write the name of it down. But he hasn't followed this up with another feature. But it'd be interesting to see what he does if he did. So so that's all the background we have. But I guess it's time now to find what French fancy Erik has for us with his joke of the week.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Did you know that the first victim in Knife and Heart really loved herbs, especially oregano? He didn't like dildo. Dildo.
God.
You are welcome.
Oh my God. That was raunchy.
That was raunchy. Well, you said it was going to be slightly saucy, didn't you?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, luckily you can't see this or smell this, but there's a cat outside my door in the dirt tray at the moment. So just recreating those classic days of yore.
You know, you can record in a room that doesn't have a litter box in it.
Well, it's not in the room. It's outside the door. And I can just, I heard some scratching going on. So,
you know what I think about when I think about Justin's house? I think about that episode of Friends where they go to that beach house and the whole house is covered in sand. His whole house is probably covered in litter and they just walk around in it.
Well, having 8 cats, we need a lot of dirt trays, put it that way. So okay. Well, we got some feedback, haven't we? I think.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Erik, I think you have something.
I have one here, yes, and this is from our friend Declan Gallagher. He says, "Hey there, gents. I hope you're all doing fabulously. I can't thank you enough for all of the wonderful content you've been providing, as it has for the last 12 years. It continues to bring so much joy and has gotten me through many a tough spot. I wanted to alert you all to an incidental shout-out, something I myself just realised. For the last year or so, I've been writing horror articles for the magazine/website Entertainment Weekly. Not sure if they have it outside of the States. And frequently, I have been using Justin's site and your podcasts and commentaries as research material. They really are invaluable. I keep hoping to quote you all, but Erik's filthy mouth makes it impossible. Hopefully one day. My mouth isn't that filthy. Anywho.
Dildo.
Yeah. That's not a bold word.
They can quote that in Entertainment Weekly.
Yeah.
Your joke of the week.
Yeah, imagine my joke of the week's getting... Because Entertainment Weekly is a big thing.
That's a huge thing over here. I don't know about you guys, but...
Yeah. Anyway, he says, anywho, I used your Fog podcast for research on a locations article for that movie, and in attempting to create a research citation, I accidentally linked within the article to your episode. I didn't mean to, but was quite pleased when I saw it, as I consider it an homage to the boys who gave me my horror education. I linked the article below, and he sent us the link here to the Entertainment Weekly news site. And a few others I've done that I thought you may get a kick out of, so you can take a look. It's nothing major, but I'm pleased I was able to work you all in somehow. He managed to work us all in. Ooh, our missus. Yeah. Thank you as always for your work, Declan Gallagher. So thank you, Declan. Yes, thank you, Declan's writing for Entertainment Weekly. I know we know of Entertainment Weekly. It's available here in select newsagents as an import title. It's not actually published over here though, but yeah, I know it's like a huge magazine.
That's kind of cool then, huh? Thank you, Declan.
Yeah, and also congratulations, Declan, on getting the gig with Entertainment Weekly, because that is a big title. So, and thank you for fitting us all in.
Very apt for Knife and Heart, yes.
Yes, indeed. So I think was that all the feedback we have this time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it for this week.
Yeah, but we had a lot last time. But again, do write in because we do love hearing from you. So, and we will do our very best to read everything you write in out, as it were. So, is there anything? It's going to be unlike many of the appendages in Knife and Heart. It's going to be a short one this week, I think. Is there? Well, actually, talking of which, I was going to mention. Obviously, the porn past. Erik's Anal Paprika was one of yours, wasn't it? Was it
no,
part
it wasn't.
3?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I did like that before in the film within the film in Knife and Heart. It's released as homicidal, but its original title was Anal Fury, I think.
Yes.
Which I thought was funny.
It's Anal Fury 6 or something, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of right at home for you there, Erik.
Yeah. Well,
you better shut your bitchy mouth or you'll be on the receiving end of it, some anal fury.
Ooh.
Who says
Erik.
I wasn't?
How did there was that old game, wasn't it? Was it? I'm not sure if it's one of those things where they're just trying to get your personal details so they can hack your bank account. But when you could put the name of your first pet and your grandmother's first name as your porn name. But that would probably just give away our bank details to that one nefarious listener we have somewhere.
Yeah, but what kind of moron uses a pet name or a family member name as their password?
Yeah, I don't.
Indeed, yes. So, well, what are we covering next time? Because I believe it's Nathan. Is it your turn?
Is it my turn, guys?
It is your turn, yep.
Then, yeah, we are going to cover Your Next.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
You do realize that's a film with a budget of over $50.
Yeah, it's but you guys watched Blood Cult, so I thought I'd give you a tiny break before I choose another Nathan pick.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, and to say we're just about to go to get our leg warmers on and do some breakdancing. Erik's going to be covering Breaking from 1984 on the Patreon for our off-piste pick. So, join us over there for that. When you get, if you're joining us on Patreon, if you're not, then please do. The more the merrier. So, should have fun with that. So, what are we playing out with, Joseph?
We are playing out with Thrash Me by Malaria! ! They were an experimental electronic band from West Berlin, and they formed in 1981. And this song in particular is both catchy and featured in the film during that cruising-esque opening dance club sequence. So, yeah, Thrash Me by Malaria! !
Malaria!
Exactly.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues. And I hope you enjoyed the show. So we'll catch you next time when we cover Your Next. Thanks for listening. And say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people.
So long.
Bye.
Goodbye.